if God puts something on your heart and gives you a vision for something, don't make excuses for it. Like, sit on it, pray about it. But if he's calling you, write down the steps that need to be taken to get there, and be obedient. Because even in the difficult times or the difficult callings, there's purpose for your life. There's purpose for for him to be able to use you. I think we're a vessel of whatever God's plan is for our life.
Let's do this. Aaron Rayford back with us on the podcast. We're doing the part 2 of his podcast, and we're going to talk about his RV journey across America with his family. I'm super excited about this. Welcome, Aaron.
Yes, let's do this. Am I allowed to say the catchphrase?
Oh, you can say it. You can say it. Actually, I got a letter from, we mentioned him on the last podcast, from Sean, your leader in OM, and he signed the handwritten note, "Let's do this." I thought that was amazing. I was like, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Time out. Where is the t-shirt? Where's the t-shirt?
The Let's Do This. Oh, let's do this. Yeah, that's it. We're going to start a swag store soon, actually.
Okay, I will buy the shirt if it's in there.
Okay, perfect. I'll get some Let's Do This shirts. That's great. Yeah, we should, that could be your catchphrase for your RV trip, right? But anyhow, so Aaron,
I don't have a catchphrase. So.
You don't? Well, come on, man. You got to put it on the side of your RV or something. Well, hey. So last podcast we introduced Aaron. I'm not going to go through that again, but Aaron is in OM and used to work for me, and he's got 4 kids and a beautiful wife, and they're traveling around the country in an RV. So I really wanted to pick his brain around how he got started in that journey. I think it's something that many of us either are extremely interested in and find it fascinating and never want to do, or we find it fascinating because we want to do it. So either way, I think the listeners will learn a lot, and you've had some lessons through it, and so let's just dive into that and see what we can uncover. First question I have is, how did you even get the guts to do it? I mean, you got 4 kids, they're all homeschooled. You've got multiple businesses in Fredericksburg. You have multiple commitments. I mean, how do you pull yourself away from all that?
Yeah, I didn't want to do it, actually. It was 5 years ago ish that my wife was like, "Hey, crazy idea. What if we spent a year and lived in an RV and traveled the US and visited all the states?" And I was like, that sounds like a horrible idea. First of all, we have a big family. We have a dog. I've got a ton of work stuff I have to do. And, there's work. And what are we going to do about work? So I'm just going to go ahead and shoot that down right now. And she was like, "Oh, okay." And just kept working on it a little bit. And so through talking about it and it kind of being a theme, sort of a lot of the pros started outweighing the cons. And I would say about 3 years ago, through a lot of prayer and consideration, I got on board, and we were like, okay, let's start planning for what this even looks like. And one of the things I felt like God put in my spirit, affirmed for doing it, was that he wanted it to be an intentional year, a year to grow in relationship with one another and grow spiritually. And the thing is, back in having roots in a home and in routine in that environment, it's easy to get busy and kind of have kids events and sort of, I want to say obligations, just to put it in perspective, but I guess that's a bad word. They're good things, but a lot of times I think you can fill your schedule up with a ton of good things and not a lot of God things. And I felt like he was saying, look, I want you to take a year to do this. And I don't know fully why, but I have known enough, experience enough to know that when I'm questioning why am I doing this, like that he has a plan and a purpose. So going back to kind of our last discussion, when I was working for you guys, and we were flipping, a million houses a year. It was a rat race and it was difficult, but if I fast forward to today where I'm applying a lot of those same skills for my work and my ministry that I consider it essentially, where we have an impact on families, an impact on trades. I know he was preparing me to be able to do that with ease and do that in my sleep and do that from the road and be able to flip houses back home while I'm across the country. So I think the word was just obedience, like being obedient to that call on doing it. So we started to kind of begin to plan to do it for real. And that was about 3 years ago that we started planning it.
Oh, wow. So you guys started a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have multiple businesses back home. I'm a little bit ADD. I like to have my hands in a lot of things. We have a swim lessons company in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and we build and flip houses. So we have the new construction side and the flipping side. And then I work with like my passions in marketing and creativity. And so I have a lot of those things that were kind of based out of Fredericksburg. In order to do those things and maintain those things that God has given us and steward them well, we had to have a plan of how to remove ourselves from it, not in a way that says hands off, but like we've got to know what's going on, be able to give input and have it still continue to grow and thrive. So it started with just kind of having the vision of how can I still do this job but not be here? And we wrote down a huge list of things in all those different categories, swimming, real estate, marketing, personal, whatever it was. And we just started to write down that plan. And each of those things took a lot of intentional effort in building over time. So it was a process, but leading up to, I guess, last year when we were getting ready to embark, the only thing that we had left on our list was like, how do we still meet with our partners? Because when we wanted to step out of our businesses for a little while, we made it clear to them, like, we don't want to leave you with a job. Like, we want to have our jobs and maintain what we're doing. So we don't want to be gallivanting around the U.S. and you guys be like, well, I'm doing Aaron's job or I'm doing Carrie's job.
Yeah.
And so we were like, how do we stay connected with our business partners? And then COVID hit and everybody was forced online and forced on Zoom. And it was like just that confirmation from the Lord, like, here you go. I'm taking care of this last check mark on the whiteboard for you guys. And that was it. We went and bought the RV, spent all of quarantine renovating it, changing it to be sort of a Pinterest home on wheels, and then started a YouTube and started an Instagram and started all that. Like, that was kind of new too, and started documenting the journey. And so here we are, 6 months in now, and we're 31 states in. We want to try to hit all 50 if possible. So 30 states in feels pretty good.
Well, that's exciting. There's a lot there. I like what you said. Your life had a lot of good things, but maybe not a lot of God things. Or I don't know if you said that about your life, but a lot of our lives are that way. Yeah. And I think, there's a lot of talk now. I don't know who the chick is on HGTV that does the minimization. I don't know what her name is, but
I don't know.
Yeah, but anyhow, there's a lot of talk around minimizing and organizing and all those things, and we do that in our houses and we do that in our in the places we live. I think we really need to be doing that in our lives, and like what you did forced you to really minimize your life, and it reminds me of the book that I'm really high on right now, which is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I think Comer is the author. It's an unbelievable book. It's a spiritual book. It's based on spiritual principles. And it's a lot about how he doesn't say it per se like this, but how are you going to minimize your life so that you can hear from the voice of God? And so that you're doing the things that are godly, not just good. And you said it like we have all these obligations that we have to do in life. The crazy thing is they're all choices. Like 90% of those are choices we made. It's like, oh, I'm obligated to take my kid here. I'm obligated to put them in this practice. I'm obligated to, well, okay, but we all those obligations were made around choices that we decided we were going to put our kids in the thing in the first place. We were going to let their kids play this. We were going to let our kids do this instead of saying no occasionally and minimizing life so that we actually have some margin. What we've done is filled up every little void of time that we have. And then it's like, I don't know why I'm so stressed. I wonder, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, I can resonate with you because a lot of what you talked about, I call lifestyle design. And I think people fail to design their life. It's like they just go through the motions and let life happen versus sit down and say, well, what is the life I really want? And how do I achieve that? So you guys started 3 years ago to make that happen in this example. My example is much different than yours. I came to Colorado for 6 months. People will be like, what are you doing on the 6-month vacation? Well, for 10 years, I designed my lifestyle. We talked about in the last podcast so that I could have passive income. And so it would allow me to have freedoms that I wouldn't have otherwise. I created business partnerships where I was on the passive side and someone else was on the active side. I took less ownership in businesses so that I would have less obligations. I did a lot of things that actually made me less money, but gave me more time. Tim Ferriss in 4 Hour Workweek, he mentions, and I love this thought, he says, why would you not use a renewable resource to buy a non-renewable resource? And so we have this thing called money, which is renewable. We have this thing called time, which is non-renewable, and we can use our money to buy time, right? But first, it's really weird in our society. If you do that, you almost get looked down upon. Like if you find ways to make life easier, like have a house cleaner, have somebody mow your lawn. When I was really busy in work, we had an au pair. I mean, it was like we had an au pair. You would have thought that we were the worst people in the world. People would look at us like, well, I don't want somebody raising my kids. I'm thinking, well, they're not really raising my kids. They're just doing all the stuff with my kids that would just be busy stuff for me. And I get to spend quality time with my kids. So I use this renewable resource called money to buy time. And then the time I had with my family was really enjoyable. Right. And so, but that was all around. It doesn't happen unless you did what you did, which is 3 years ago, start planning this thing and creating the lifestyle that you really wanted. I think that's really important. And I think your example is great. But anyhow, back to the 6 month thing, just so people don't get me wrong. The only reason we did a 6 month vacation is because we just refused to write the same book everyone else is writing. Like, I don't want to die and my book read the exact same of 90% of Americans.
Yeah.
You know, if you create an opportunity in life, then take it. And if you can create a different life like you're doing right now, well, by all means, take it. Because somehow as Americans, we've come into this mindset that our lives have to look this way and we have to do these things and our kids have to do these activities and we have to go here and we have to do this. But that's not really true. We're buying a lie. And so our idea was very similar to yours. It was like, man, we'll never have 6 months of family time, relational growth. And my other thing was I'll never be away from the busyness, because Fredericksburg is a suburb of Washington, D.C. If you don't know, you would think it's a little sleepy suburb. It is a busy, crazy, hectic, stressful place. I can't explain it. You wouldn't think so, but it really is. I mean, just traffic alone will. I love it. I love it, but it can be if you don't watch it. So getting here for us, similar to probably you, and I'll stop talking about me, it was a time for me to hear spiritually. And I hadn't planned to move to Colorado, but in that season, we never left. So watch out. Who knows what God will do? But in that season, this is where I'm getting to in all of it. Because I and you created a lifestyle design that allowed you to do something that God put on your heart, created the margin in your schedule to hear from God, build relationship. From that, the vision of Ordinary Men was birthed in my life. And I am 100% sure if I had never taken the time to develop that lifestyle, to plan for passive income, to plan for all the things that had to happen for me to start taking steps like we took, that I really feel this strongly, that Ordinary Men would not exist today because I could not have heard the voice of God. That's so. Are you hearing anything on your trip, or do you feel like God's revealing any big downloads to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, like in terms of like growth and fruit, like from growing relationally and spiritually has been an execution. Just to give some people, like some other people listening, maybe some practical things. Like what we set aside, like I would say in the years leading up to the trip, was like we wanted to have a night per week that was family night, and family night in a way that where we were giving some sort of spiritual guidance and lesson to our children from us. And I don't know where everyone else grew up, but I grew up, in a Christian home, going to children's church and youth group and all that stuff. And I came to know the Lord that way. That was where like kind of the seeds were planted. But the busyness of life and having a big family, like I think as a parent now, I understand how busy it gets. And sometimes you work all day and then you want to just hit the sack when you get home, or have a little bit of you time and go to sleep. And taking the intentional step of saying, hey, we're going to just talk about the Lord. We're going to read some scripture together. We're going to pray together. We're going to worship together. And setting that standard of yes, life is busy, but we're never too busy to pursue relationship with Jesus. That was on our heart before the trip, and I don't think we executed that very well because of that. Like you're saying, those obligations, that time margin, and that could be an excuse. Like anyone that's living at home can probably execute that very well. But for us, like this trip has put more of a urgency on that and more of a, hey, we're together. It's Thursday. Let's do this, or let's work in some lessons to what we're doing, or let's go minister to this person that we saw, or tell them about God, be an example, be a light. So we didn't want to rely on other people, church, Sunday school. The kids go to a Christian school. We didn't want to rely on other people for the spiritual teaching and growth in our children. We wanted to be a part of that. And so this has helped with that, put that into perspective. The other night we did a family night, and the theme was "You are what you eat." And, it's not like you have to over prepare. It's just like, I found that the most times if I'm in the word and I'm consistent in the word, God is giving me things from my heart, which are just as easy to put in context for kids. Yeah. So instead, you don't have to make this big thing, this big preparation. It's just like, hey, I wanted to share something God put on my heart. I've been into running, over the past year. And when I go on a run, like I can tell like if I've been eating well or if I've been eating junk. We stopped at McDonald's like a couple days ago. That was not helping the run situation. Right. In the same way, if we fill up on the goodness of God and the truth of his word, now we're prepared to outflow and pour out to other people from a positive place. But if we're running on empty or we're running on junk, then we're not going to be as effective for the kingdom or for what God has prepared for us. So just little things like that, that I've seen. And then, and then it just blesses my heart then to go see them. Okay, I'm going to prioritize listening to the Bible, or they watch an app called Superbook, and them bringing up values and lessons they've learned to us, because we've normalized a conversation in the context of family around prayer, reading the Bible, and you know what? We don't know what this trip is exactly preparing them for or us for, but I know I've been through some stuff where I needed like brothers in my life to pull me out, and I needed the word of God in my life to prevent me from going over the edge. And so if that's normalized in your family, then that's like a stable place where people can come when they do fall, when my boys do struggle with lust, when my daughter comes home and someone was, not kind to her, if she goes into school and she's needing to hear the word and the truth of God to, know how she's made wonderfully, and made perfect and so that's just really kind of been the theme, and the blessing and the fruit that has come so far 6 months in, and who knows what he's preparing us for, in the years to come.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's just this trip, you will never look back and say, man, it stinks I had to spend that much time with my family. It will be, you will ingrain things in your children during this season, this year, that will be there forever. And I know that because I've experienced it, not on an RV level, but on a similar level of coming here in Colorado. And I mean, I just would encourage people, like what you said, it seems like around the dinner table is when we have the greatest discussions about faith. And ours are very rarely like a Bible study that we're doing or a devotional. My dad used to do devotionals with me, and I got to be honest, man, the kids, we would just like go in, zone out, and couldn't get out fast enough, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'd say 90% of days we have dinner together at the table. And I know that's difficult the more busy you are and the more that you have kids running different directions. As my son enters high school, that's going to be more difficult. But when it's not, when the kids are younger, I think it's really, really, really important. And during that time, we just have conversation, and I'll just ask questions. And the questions to them are just, you know, they think Dad's just asking a question, but really what I'm doing is I'm trying to get them to say something that I can then use as a lesson. And I find that for me as a father, that's my best fathering moments, is when there's actually a real life example, and I can say, well, what does the Word of God say about that? And what do you think, you know, God would say in this example? And it's similar to what you're doing, right? With the you are what you eat. And I love what you're doing, and I mean, kudos to you. And you know what else is interesting, and I think you'll agree with this. When you're back in the norm of life, and kids have their friends, and that's where we are now. Obviously, we're grounded here, so kids always have somebody they can call and have come over, you know, do whatever. But when you're in a situation like you're in, or like we were in when we were here for, you know, the first year, didn't know anybody, like the only option is brothers and sisters and family. Like there's something really special about that season when it's like the only option is each other. It like draws the family unit so close together. When if you want to do something, you do it with your family, because you don't have a bunch of friends to distract you, you know? And man, we grew so close together as a family during that season. Are you guys seeing the same thing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just seeing them connect, seeing them play. Yeah, it really is a thing where I hear that, you know, we have an online family now too, with like our, you know, all of our vlogging and all that stuff. But, you know, everyone there was like, man, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what these memories are creating. And it's like when you hear when you just have a kid and people are like, oh, be careful, man. Time goes by so fast. You just hold on to these precious moments. And you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then,
it's like a snail's pace.
You're like, oh shoot. Like all of those crazy people that like went out of their way to tell me that, like they were spot on. Yeah. Like I'm looking at my 11-year-old like that, like, dude, you were like a baby yesterday. And so I'm kind of learning from that and saying like, well, look, people are telling me, you know, hey, this is a really valuable time. Enjoy it. Take your time. And I'm kind of learning my lesson and listening to that, because I feel like it is doing things that we might not see now, but we're going to see very soon.
Oh, guaranteed. Zero doubt in my mind. I'll be that old lady telling you that time will fly. It will. You will look back and just see such a change in your family because of it. Well, let me ask you this. So let's get to some practical stuff with this RV trip, right? First off, you guys have a vlog, you said? A vlog? What is it?
Yeah, it's a vlog. We started vlogging. I mean, and we're new to that, but you know, we created a YouTube and an Instagram. It's just at the Rayfords. And you know, as I'm making these videos, they're fun. They're like home videos, except for you know, I look at my home videos and it's like an hour of me opening presents. And like, this is just kind of cool because I think although the kids aren't that into it now, like, you know, 30 years down the road, if we go back and watch our trip and reminisce on our trip, there'll be things we forgot about, and cool to see everyone at their stage of life. And so it's a selfish vlog, but we've had people that join in and that are also RV enthusiasts or family enthusiasts, or business, you know, working remotely enthusiasts, like whatever it is, join in. And it's been cool to have an online community as well. Since I would say one of the biggest.
And how do I see that? How do I see it again?
So YouTube at the Rayfords, youtube.com/the Rayfords, or we're at the Rayfords on Instagram as well.
Okay.
And we're doing our episodes on there, and but I think that, you know, it's been cool. That's been a cool element because it is a hobby, but it's given us some additional community and outreach. Since we are just us, like I think one of the things that you kind of cheat a little bit when you go off traveling the whole country in your RV is, you cheat on a little bit of community. You meet people at your RV park, but it's only for a little bit. Yeah. And so you don't have like as much connection. So Ordinary Men from the Road has been huge. Staying connected with family has been huge, but we have the online family as well too now. So it's just been cool.
That's awesome. So what has been the most difficult part, do you think? More around like the RV experience. Yeah.
Just patience. Like if you're in business, you and you're goal oriented, you want to kind of see the, 1 + 1 = 2. And, I want to go from here to there, but I'm learning how to wait like half an hour for the gas tank. You know what I'm saying? Like you pull in.
It really takes that long.
Sometimes you have your turn signal on and you are waiting for that spot, and then some guy just zips in his little Honda Civic and grabs his, like, I'm waiting here in this big rig, man. And so you just got to wait and then be like inching up so that the next person doesn't cut you off. Stuff goes wrong all the time. You're driving a 30,000-pound vehicle, for miles and miles and miles. It's a house on wheels. And so, the other day, it was 2 days ago, we went to leave and our slide like wouldn't come in, like the bump outs that go out like this.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't come in. You can't drive if they're out. So we had to get on YouTube and look up tutorials of how to manually reset the motor and all this stuff. And man, I think there hasn't been a trip where something hasn't broke, that you got to maintain it and you got to keep working. So it's not all, glamour. The biggest learning curve was probably learning to discard our sewage. Okay. So you got to get over that. Your toilets have to be emptied out and flushed out from the outside. That's a dirty job, but the cons are there, but the pros are just experiencing and seeing new things and adventure. And the country is beautiful and every state has a little something different. And we've just been sampling that. It's almost been a year to sample what each place has. And then in the future, like we're doing family vacations, like, man, we got to go back to Utah, man, we got to go back to that coast. That was an amazing spot. Let's do that again and get one of those lobster rolls or, whatever it is. Those family vacations can then be planned, based on what you've already experienced. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. What would you change anything?
I would definitely make different design selections. Some things have held up, some things haven't. I've thought about doing a video on that because, you put this video out and it's like beautiful before and afters, and that looks great for a while. But then when 4 kids live in it and the dog and certain things go to crap, you'd make other choices.
You're saying like you remodeled the RV before you started, and so those design features you would change.
Yeah. So that's like on the more practical RV side. Yeah. It wouldn't be a Rayford, home if we didn't, flip it, so like we definitely put in painting and cabinet stuff and, tile, all that stuff. But so that's on the practical side. But I think on the general side, I wouldn't change anything. There's been some that have been faster and slower. When we set out, we were like, look, this is going to be a season of probably not that much growth in business. We're going to get our jobs taken care of, but we're not going to push into new territories. Yeah. And I've learned to just be flexible, along with the patience and waiting for gas, and the things breaking. I've learned flexibility because while we had that in our minds, we're just going to chill, God had other plans. So, a handful of months in, COVID hit, and then, we had to be really hands-on with businesses and how to roll that out and communicate with customers. And then we had an opportunity to open a 3rd location for our swim lessons company. That's in the works, and that was not something we were prepared to do, but that's sort of a God opened door, and we're walking through that. And so I don't think I would change anything. I would just say my ideas and my thoughts are typically take a backseat to whatever God has planned, and I'm flexible to that.
Yeah. By the way, there's their swim lesson company is Little Fish Swimming. If you're in the Fredericksburg area, make sure you guys support the Rayfords and send your kids there. It's really a great business. Tell me this, what would you say, gosh, I have so many questions. So you guys left Fredericksburg. So if you're coming from the East Coast, what's the proper route? Did you guys like do a big circle, or did you just like whatever you felt like in the moment you did?
Yeah, I'll give you just kind of a recap on what the few legs that we've done. We call them legs, like because we do go back. We have the way it's worked out. We've gone back for certain things.
Okay.
But we started out and we knew we wanted to, in the summer, July, get out to Colorado. We saw you briefly when we were out there.
Yeah, we did.
We did Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, all of that Northwest area. And then came back to North Carolina for a family reunion. So we kind of covered all that stuff up north that we wanted to, like Yellowstone National Park and all those big places like Glacier National Park. We did that before the cold. We didn't want to be up there in the RV. First time RVers in the winter,
no,
driving in the
not.
snow. That sounds like a bad plan. So then after that, we went up north to Maine and then came all the way down the East Coast and did Maine all the way down to Florida. And then we went back home for the holidays. And then after the holidays, we embarked on this journey that we're on now, which was kind of pick it up in Alabama and head west, kind of over to Texas. And we're looping back now as well because we're going to be back for kind of that opening of a location. So just being a good steward and understanding kind of what God's doing and being flexible. We'd like to, our goal, just so like the full scope is like, I would love it if we were able to visit all 50 states this year by the time fall hits. Yeah. By the time the next school year starts. So I think that's possible because we're like 31 or I think we're 31 in, 32.
Yeah, you said 31.
Official count from Carrie. But if we got all 50 under our belt and then like we had, all those episodes and all those states, and that would be a really clean, clear way to look back on this year. That would be awesome. So we'll see. We're being flexible.
What are if you had to give three of your favorite spots, what would they be?
Okay. Whoa. Utah is number one. That's definitely number one so far.
Give me a specific. Anything specific in Utah?
Yeah. I loved Arches National Park and Moab.
Yeah.
Basically the same.
I'm so glad you said that because the next OM leaders retreat I want to do in Moab.
Oh, dude, that would be amazing. I'm bringing my mountain bike.
Oh, it's amazing.
And amazing restaurants, amazing little vibe in Moab. And then if we had some OM meetings in Arches National Park, just hike up to some of those rock formations, watch the sunset. I mean, that's getting a little bit romantic. Maybe watch the sunrise. That would be awesome.
No, it's one of my favorite spots.
I'm all.
What's funny about Moab, it's
that was good.
Moab for us is like Nag's Head for Fredericksburg. It's, like everybody jumps over there to go to the beach. Well, it'll be February or March, probably more like March here, and still be snowing and cold. But Moab's in the desert, so there'll be a 4-day period of like 70s and 80s, and like everybody just heads out of town, heads to Moab with their campers and mountain bikes, and I mean it really is one of the more fascinating places in the world in my opinion. But okay, you were gonna say another.
No, I said then Florida stands out in my mind because I've never been to the Keys, and we got to Florida sort of around the holidays. That was the first time ever that we've been to warmer weather during the winter. Yeah, and so I'm kind of sad to be going back into colder weather right now, but when we got to Florida, we stayed there the longest. That's why when you get to that certain section of the vlog episodes, it's like Florida part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because we just were like loving it, man. We're beach and scuba diving and skate parks and pickleball. I'm big into pickleball, and just beautiful stuff there as far as beach life. And then I would say number 3, I'm a history buff, so I really liked and would explore further Boston, Massachusetts. Like we just got a sampling there and, did like the aquarium there and like Paul Revere's trail and all that. But I felt that like post COVID, there'd be a lot more to experience and learn there. And because we have kids with us, like both on the hiking side, like we have to choose carefully kind of how far of a hike we're doing or what we're doing. And then on the other side, like experience wise, it has to be family friendly. So there was a lot of like, restaurants or pubs that looked like they had been there since the 1700s. That would have been really cool to go in, but it's more of like, a date night or something like that. And that's not what this trip is. This trip is just like all family and intentional family. So, but I've taken all my notes and trust me, we're going to get back to Moab and we're going to check it out. Yeah.
Well, what advice would you give someone that's listening to you now and it's like they're feeling inspired and they're like, man, I would love to do this, but I don't know. Like, what do I do with my kids? How do I school my kids? How do I find an RV? How do I figure out my trips? How do I there must be some resources out there that you used. What would you?
Yeah. So lots of questions there. Well, first of all, I would say like very personally, like if you just want to shoot us a DM, like, and ask anything, like we're happy to share all of our knowledge and our information. So just shoot us a message on Instagram at the Rayfords. But like school wise, our kids are homeschooled. This is our first year homeschooling, kind of on the tail end of 2020, kind of partnering with the school to homeschool. And then this school year, like doing it ourselves. And I would say there's just abundance of other people doing it there. And I'm a part of a Facebook group called Full-Time Families. And typically, like if I ask any question on there, it's like tons of knowledge, experience. So you're not alone in your pursuit of wanting to do it. And a lot of people have been before you, and the RV community is very helpful and welcoming. And there's countless YouTube tutorial videos. And so I would say if you feel like the Lord's leading you to do it, find you an RV and hit the road, and we'll see you out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, don't you think it's interesting? I love when you accidentally make a decision and look like a genius. But sorry, we came out here for 6 months, and our only choice to educate our kids wasn't to put them in school. So we were like, well, we have to do this online thing, this online homeschool. Jess and I can't take a whole lot of credit because we don't really teach our kids. We pay somebody online to do it, but it is still homeschool in a sense. And then COVID hit, and we looked like everybody else is scrambling. What are we going to do? What's this going to look like? And we're like, nothing really changed for us. This is so we accidentally looked like we were really, really playing well. But in that same sense, don't you think that there's a lot of bad that came from COVID, but don't you think that COVID is going to make it easier for people to do things like this now? It's like all these things that seemed impossible before, like working from remote, running a business remote, homeschooling your kids, like all these things I think those were the big things before that were like, I can't do this RV thing. How would I ever do it? Now it's kind of like, well, I kind of can see a way all of a sudden.
Yeah. 100%. And I don't want to minimize anyone's difficulty that they've had with COVID. I know people have lost people.
Oh, sure.
I know people
Absolutely.
have been through the ringer, but there is that silver lining with everything. There is that other, perspective of, okay, well, what good came from it? And so a lot of that eye-opening experience, like you're talking about, like this being a possibility, is huge for people. And it will be, with new businesses that are opening and new experiences. And yeah, it's very interesting time. People on the road everywhere we go, well, this is a great year for you guys to have chosen to do this. And like I usually just tell them, like, honestly, like we didn't choose it. Like God put it on our heart like a handful of years ago, and it just worked out the timing. And I think that's indicating like his care for us, and that's been a way to kind of point people back to Christ on the road too. So it's been cool.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up this episode, the one thing I hear from you, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to say anything you'd like to kind of close with, but the one thing that I really take away from this conversation is number one, it's not just something you do, it's something you create a lot of purpose around. And so, it's like you guys set out with purpose, not just to see the world or to travel the US, but there was a greater purpose involved. And I think that's really important for anybody that's thinking of doing something like this, or even if you did something like we did, which, we're just not RV people. I think the patience thing, the things breaking down, I'm just not wired very well that way. And so I probably would find it more stressful at times. So maybe somebody else does it differently. Maybe it's a city for 2 weeks and just city hopping or whatever it would be. Right. But either way, I think it's really important that, like anything we do in life, that we design it with purpose and we put God at the center of it. And I love that that's what you guys have done. I think that's what's really, really neat about the whole thing, and that you're using it as an opportunity to hear the voice of God in your lives, and you're very open to see what he leads you to coming out of this. And if life looks a bit differently, then you're fine with that. And so I just think, all the practical stuff involved and the stories and the places you've seen, I think all that's secondary to what God's going to do in your life. And so I'm just proud of you for stepping out and doing it. I know when you were here I don't know if it was June or July or when it was, but when you guys came through with the RV, we had a pretty serious conversation about, man, what does this look like for work, and how do I manage this? And, how do I, not that if your partners are listening, you weren't complaining at all about your partners. I really mean that, but it was more just about that tension that I also felt, which is like, man, I'm here, they're there, like this tension of like, what are they thinking? How are they? It's this internal dialogue that you have that kind of torments you a little bit. And we talked a lot about that. And, so, obviously you're learning a lot from the journey, and so I'm just proud of you for stepping out and doing it. And a lot of people want to do things. It's one thing to want to do it. It's another thing to actually step out and do it. So kudos to you and Carrie, and I'm excited to see what God's going to do in your life through it. So you have any final thoughts or words for us as we close out?
I would just say, if God puts something on your heart and gives you a vision for something, don't make excuses for it. Like, sit on it, pray about it. But if he's calling you, write down the steps that need to be taken to get there, and be obedient. Because even in the difficult times or the difficult callings, there's purpose for your life. There's purpose for him to be able to use you. I think we're a vessel of whatever God's plan is for our life, and we want to be an outpouring of Jesus to other people. So I would say just be obedient, be flexible, stay patient at the gas pump if you're in the RV, and definitely connect with us. Relationships matter, and we don't want followers. We want real friends. So, if you're reaching out, then make sure it's stay connected and be a part of our community. Awesome.
At the Rayfords.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. I appreciate you being on the podcast. I hope you inspire others. I know you inspire me, and I appreciate it so much. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.